the panelists.
Yes, I am particularly, first of all, I want to thank all the panelists for their hard work and their insight. I'd like to probe Mr. Miller a bit further in his mentioning that the comparison between the Sheriff's Department and LAPD, both within LA County. LAPD, according to Mr. Miller, doesn't have deputy gangs. So my question is, why not?
Well, I've actually researched this a lot, the answer to this, and I've had conversation with top brass at LAPD, and I asked them the same question: what's the difference? And the thing is, just to have some perspective, like I said, it's two agencies operating the same region of Southern California, Los Angeles, doing the same line of work. Yes, there's bad employees in every line of work in every profession, so LAPD is not perfect, but they don't have cop gangs. So we talked about this. What's the difference? The LAPD people told me in one word, it's accountability. They had to answer it in one word, but we talked further about what's different in terms of actual practices and policies. And there's policies on the books at LASD, most of them are in place that you would hope would prevent the formation of deputy gangs, but the actual implementation enforcement is not there. And to give you a good example of where there's policies in place, but there's a difference between LAPD and LASD, a great example is the abuse of trainees. The banditos have historically controlled the training program at East Los Angeles. The way they recruit new members primarily is by abusing the trainees. They bully them, they harass them, they terrorize the trainees to put the trainee in a position of choosing between quitting or staying and bearing it and being bullied, or to become the bully and join the gang. And that's how they create prospects. There's a power dynamic established in that relationship at LASD that you don't have at LAPD. LAPD has a zero tolerance policy and they enforce it. Zero tolerance of abuse of trainees. To this day, trainees are being abused at many of the stations in LASD. There's little accountability for depriving trainees of food breaks, of working 24 hours without sleep, physically, up to physical violence being committed against them. That's the history of LASD with the trainees. That's how they create new members. So as far as reform is concerned, the sheriff is going to say, we have anti-hazing policies in place. It's already there, but it's not actually being enforced. So that's an example of two agencies. They may have similar policies, but the actual culture and practice is very different. Then there's a whole set of policies that are actually different. And a good example of that is in LASD, when a deputy is accused of criminal conduct, using excessive force, let's say a situation where there's a use of excessive force and it's a controversial, questionable shooting, and it's sent over to ICIB for a criminal investigation, the sheriff's department puts a hold on an administrative investigation. So you could have a deputy who's under investigation for criminal conduct, and it can go on for a year or more, and there's no investigation, no consequences, no discipline. The LASD will even at times delay doing any administrative investigation until civil litigation is finished. So you could have a deputy for years not being held accountable for his conduct. LAPD is starkly different in its policies. LAPD will start an administrative investigation from day one, the same time there's a criminal investigation. They will wall off the investigations from each other for due process rights to protect of the deputy in his criminal investigation, but they will immediately begin the administrative investigation because they want to find out if something wrong happened. They want to find out if their deputy did something that he shouldn't have. They want to find out if they need to impose discipline. Do they need to take the deputy officer off the line, not be on duty? Do they need to suspend this deputy? Do they need to do training, not just to this deputy, but other deputies? So they're not so worried about, the public finding out or plaintiff's attorneys finding out information. LAPD will try to investigate the problem and fix it. whereas LASD will not fix it often and not investigate it. And this can go on for years. And of course, on the back end, we've got a lot of situations where you've got accusations of excessive force. You've got deputies who are accused of excessive force in controversial shootings, and there never is even an IA investigation at all in LASD.
Oh,
So that's a big problem. And that's a
Thank
big
you.
difference between the two. It'd be very helpful to look at those differences between LAPD and LASD, because we have the benefit right in front of us of an unintentional scientific experiment has been taking place in Southern California, and you see the results are different. So you want to look at what's happening.